Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going deep, diving deep into early Islam,
Okay,
and we're going to be looking at it through the lives of three people.
sounds good.
So we've got Ayman, her son Usama, and Zayd ibn Haritha.
Interesting.
And all of these figures were very closely connected to the Prophet Muhammad.
Okay.
And their stories offer a really unique window into this like really important time period in Islamic history.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, Amon, she started as a slave who was actually inherited by the prophet,
Oh,
but then became like a revered mother figure to him.
interesting.
Zayed was adopted by the prophet and ended up becoming one of his closest companions.
Okay.
And their son, Usama, he held a very special place in the prophet's heart.
Yeah, I see.
Our main source for this deep dive is a lecture by Yasir Qudi,
Okay, cool.
and he does a really great job like bringing these figures to life. So
Yeah.
what we're going to try to do today is unpack their stories and see what they reveal about the social dynamics, the culture, and even the challenges
Hmm.
that were faced in early Islam.
It's amazing how these three people, connected by family,
Right.
but each with such distinct roles, can really help us grasp the complexity of that time.
Absolutely. So let's start with Amen.
Okay.
Her journey from being a slave to a free woman, and then this really respected figure. I mean, it's incredible.
It is.
It really makes you think about all the shifts that Islam brought about.
Yeah, and it's really striking how the prophet would address her as mother,
Yeah.
a title that shows you the level of respect she had earned.
Right.
It challenges that whole typical master-slave dynamic
Yeah.
and points to a much deeper transformation within the community.
And it wasn't just like a formal title or anything.
Right.
There's this story where the prophet playfully teases Amen
Oh, well.
about giving her a baby camel for a journey,
Uh-huh.
knowing full well it's not going to be practical at all.
Oh, that's funny.
It just shows that warmth and the family bond they shared.
Exactly. That playful interaction reveals a side of the prophet we don't always get to see. And it really highlights that genuine affection he had for her.
For sure. But her importance goes way beyond just the personal.
You mean her involvement in the battles like Uhud and Khaybar?
Yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
was so surprised to find that out.
Right.
It really breaks that stereotype that women were passive back then.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Um, Amon and other women were giving crucial support on the battlefields,
Wow.
taking care of the wounded and helping the community to stay strong.
It's a really different picture.
This really underscores the active roles women had in those early days of Islam.
And then there's that very poignant moment after the prophet passed away
Oh, yeah.
when Abu Bakr and Umar go to visit Ayman.
Uh-huh.
She is just devastated, and not only by his death,
Yeah.
but also by the realization that revelation has ended.
It's such a powerful scene.
It is.
Really speaks to the immense impact of his death and the sense of loss the entire community must have felt.
Mm-hmm.
And Amon, having lived through that entire early period,
Right.
she had witnessed it all firsthand,
Yeah.
which makes her grief all the more profound.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about Zayd ibn Haritha.
Okay.
His story is a really interesting lens to view the evolution of Islamic law.
In what way?
Well, his adoption by the prophet and the later changes to Islamic law around adoption.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's fascinating.
Zayed's case really shows us how the faith grappled with existing cultural practices
Okay.
and then adapted to the changing times.
Yeah.
It reminds us that Islamic law isn't fixed, but it's this living tradition that grows.
It's interesting, too, how the prophet fiercely defended Zayd and his son Usama,
I didn't know that.
against these racist rumors that were going around.
Wow.
It shows you how committed he was to building a fair and just society.
It's a powerful message that still resonates with us today.
Totally. And the fact that Zayd, even though not biologically related,
Right.
was initially considered the prophet's son,
Mm-hmm.
it just underlines how important chosen family was in early Islam. And to make this even more interesting,
Okay.
Zayd ends up marrying Amen, and their son Usama becomes the central figure in the prophet's life.
So their marriage itself is actually quite significant.
How so?
It signifies a real break from those old tribal hierarchies.
Oh, I see.
You have a formerly enslaved woman marrying a man so close to the prophet.
Yeah, that's true.
This union and Usama's birth really solidifies their family's crucial role in the growing Muslim community.
And speaking of Usama, he was clearly very dear to the prophet.
It sounds like it.
The prophet would often carry Usama, make special prayers for him.
Uh-huh.
and even chose him as a writing companion during like pivotal moments,
Like what?
like the conquest of Mecca and the last pilgrimage.
Those are pretty major events.
Exactly. These weren't just casual gestures.
I see.
They were very intentional acts full of meaning.
They were deeply symbolic,
Yeah,
showing not only the prophet's love for him,
right.
but also the high regard he had for Usama within the entire community.
Right.
It's almost as if he was presenting Usama as this symbol of Islam's future.
There's this one really touching image.
Oh, tell me about it. Where the prophet is carrying both Usama and his own grandson Hassan
Oh, wow.
while making supplications for them both.
That's amazing.
It's such a powerful image.
I wonder what the people who witnessed that scene must have felt.
Yeah, it really makes you think.
It does.
You know what it might symbolize?
What do you think?
The prophet's vision for Islam,
Okay,
a community that goes beyond blood ties,
I like that.
where faith and love are the things that bind people together.
It's a beautiful thought.
Yeah, it is. And that brings us to Usama being appointed the leader of an army when he was still so young.
Right.
I mean, that must raise some eyebrows back then.
Oh, it definitely did. Picking someone so young to lead an army, especially one with experienced people like Abu Bakr and Umar,
Yeah.
it was pretty unheard of. And, their reaction is understandable.
Yeah.
But it also shows how much those old pre-Islamic ideas about seniority and hierarchy still lingered,
So how did the prophet deal with all that?
even though he was on his deathbed. He found the strength to stand up for Usama. Wow.
And he reaffirmed his total faith in him.
So he really believed in Usama.
He even drew a parallel to Zayd's leadership,
Oh, interesting.
reminding everyone that Zayd also faced pushback initially, but he proved himself.
It was like a powerful statement about trust.
It was.
And a clear message that leadership in Islam wasn't just about age or social status.
Exactly.
But what about the expedition itself? Did Usama actually live up to those expectations?
Well, sadly, the prophet passed away, and the mission had to be scaled back.
Oh, that's right.
But Usama still led the troops, and he actually encountered a Roman battalion.
Really?
And get this, they won.
That's incredible, especially so soon after the prophet's death.
It was a huge victory for the young Muslim community. It boosted morale and showed they could still be strong even with all the grief.
That must have been a big relief.
It was even Emperor Heraclius of Byzantium heard about it and was shocked.
Wow, they really made an impact.
They did. He was amazed by their resilience to keep fighting after such a loss.
It's incredible to think of young Usama leading them to victory at such a difficult time.
It is. But his story takes a bit of a turn after this. He doesn't go on to become some big military leader.
No, he does.
He chooses a quieter path. He stays respected, but mostly avoids politics and big military campaigns.
So what does he do instead?
He focuses on worship and family. Yasir Qadi talks about how Usama would fast every Monday and Thursday without fail,
Really? Even when he was traveling?
even when he was traveling to his fields. He explained that he learned this practice from the prophet himself.
It's a beautiful detail. It really speaks to his piety and how committed he was to following the prophet's teachings in his own life.
It also gives us a glimpse into the prophet's personal practices, and how religious knowledge was passed on back then.
It's like we're getting a peek into their daily lives.
Exactly. And the fact that Usama kept up this practice consistently shows how strongly the prophet's example influenced his companions.
And we can't forget about Usama's decision to stay neutral during those conflicts between the companions after the prophet passed away.
Oh, right. His analogy about it being like a lion's den?
Yeah, he'd rather take shelter with Ali than get caught in a fight between Muslims.
That's really telling.
It shows his wisdom and character.
He put unity and peace above his own loyalties.
He knew how dangerous infighting would be for the community.
That's such a valuable lesson for us today,
Yeah, especially with all the division in the world.
It reminds us to look for common ground and try to understand each other better.
Absolutely. So we've talked about Usama's public life.
We have.
But what about him as a person? What kind of qualities did he have?
Well, the sources describe him as someone very devoted to his family.
Oh, right. There's that story about him cutting down his valuable date palm tree.
Yeah, to satisfy his mother's craving.
He was willing to make a real sacrifice for his loved ones.
He was. It really shows you the importance of family ties in early Islamic society.
And it makes Usama feel more relatable,
It humanizes him.
Yeah, he's not just a historical figure. He's a son who loves his mother.
Exactly. His marriage to Fatima bint Uthman also tells us something about him.
She was the one the prophet suggested, right?
That's right. It seems the prophet saw something in Usama that would make him a good husband.
It makes you wonder what qualities he saw.
I know the fact that the prophet was involved in this marriage says a lot about how much he trusted Usama.
And don't forget, Fatima was the sister of Thabit ibn
Oh,
Qais.
that's right. He was a prominent companion.
So this marriage really cemented Usama's social standing.
And did they have a happy marriage?
They did. They had lots of children.
So despite avoiding the political spotlight, Usama still had a full life.
He did, and he lived a long life, too. He died in the year 54 after the Hijra
Wow.
and was buried in the Baqi graveyard in Medina.
With many other important companions.
Even in his later years, his connection to the Prophet's family remained strong.
It's amazing how those bonds endured.
It is. I read that whenever Caliph Umar ran into Usama, he would respectfully call him Amir.
Recognizing his leadership role during the Prophet's time,
Yeah, it shows how much respect there was for those early relationships.
it really reflects how much the Prophet's influence continued,
Mm.
and how leaders like Umar tried to keep those values and relationships alive.
It wasn't just symbolic respect.
No, it wasn't.
Caliph Umar even made sure Usama got the same salary as the veterans of the Battle of Badr.
That's interesting considering Usama was so much younger and didn't even fight in that battle.
Why did he do that?
When people asked, Umar explained that Usama and his father Zayd were closer to the Prophet than anyone else.
And he felt it was right to honor that special bond.
It shows how personal connections really shaped the early Muslim community and its leadership.
Yeah, it wasn't all about rules and hierarchy.
No, it was about recognizing those who held a special place in the Prophet's heart.
It's a really beautiful reminder that even in positions of power, it's so important to acknowledge those personal ties and show gratitude for what people have done.
Absolutely. We've covered so much in this deep dive.
We've gone through the lives of Imam Zayd and Usama,
We've explored their individual journeys, their roles in the community.
and what their stories tell us about the challenges and successes of that time.
What stands out to me is how their stories highlight the power of faith, compassion, and justice.
Things that are just as important today.
They really are. Their lives are examples of resilience, devotion, and working towards a just and fair society.
And that's what makes these deep dives so great.
You uncovered these amazing historical stories.
And they give you insights that can really change how you see things today.
What I find so inspiring is how these people face such huge changes and challenges, but they never wavered in their beliefs and commitment to their values.
They never gave up.
They show us that even in the middle of chaos, you can still live with purpose, integrity, and love.
Yeah, it really is a powerful message.
Yeah.
You know, it makes you want to look at your own life and see if you're living up to those values.
It really does. Their stories are so inspiring.
They are. So before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier.
Okay, what's that?
We were talking about how Usama got some criticism for leading that army when he was so young, but then he proved himself.
Right, he showed them.
And it made me think about how important it is to see potential, even when it comes in unexpected ways.
Yeah, you can't judge a book by its cover.
Exactly. It makes us rethink our assumptions about leadership and what it means to be capable.
The Prophet's choice to appoint Usama, even with all the pushback,
Right.
it teaches us to look beyond those surface judgments and to recognize that everyone has potential.
We need to be more open-minded and look for those leadership qualities no matter how old someone is or where they come from.
Absolutely.
It really makes you wonder how often we miss out on someone's potential just because they don't fit our expectations.
It's a good question.
How many people are out there like Usama just waiting for someone to believe in them?
And to give them a chance to shine.
That's a powerful thought.
It reminds us how important mentorship and encouragement are,
Yeah.
and that we need to create environments where talent and leadership can flourish.
No matter their age or background.
Exactly. We have a responsibility to nurture potential,
To help people grow.
and to build a society that values and supports people even if they don't fit the mold.
I love that idea. And you know what? These stories of Ayman Zayd and Usama,
Yeah.
they're not just history lessons.
Oh, or not.
They offer us so much wisdom that we can apply to our lives today.
It's like they're speaking to us across the centuries.
What resonates with me is how they went through all that change and hardship, but they never lost sight of their faith and their values.
They had incredible strength.
They really did. They remind us that even when things are tough,
Yeah.
you can still live with purpose,
With integrity.
and with love.
That's a powerful takeaway.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with a question.
Okay, I'm listening.
How can we take what we've learned from Ayman Zayd and Usama and use it to make our own lives more meaningful?
That's a great question.
How can we embody their values of compassion, courage, and dedication to making the world a better place?
It's like their stories are a light guiding us towards greater understanding and empathy.
And action.
They challenge us to look at our own lives and ask, are we living up to our potential?
Are we doing enough?
And how can we contribute to creating a more just and compassionate world?
It's a great reminder that history isn't just about dates and facts.
It's about people.
It can inspire us and teach us things that can help us today.
It's a well of wisdom.
So until our next deep dive, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep looking for those nuggets of wisdom that light our way.
I love that.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
It's been a pleasure.